Hey, I'm Nick, and today I want to touch on how important consistency is, but also how much of an impact just small little changes can make to your life. You see, in general, it's hard to switch up something entirely. It's hard to go from being lazy to be disciplined, and it's hard to go from being on the couch to running 5K. It's something that I've mentioned before, and I've talked about to watch out for the dangers of just instantly thinking that by watching things or learning how to do things, you're going to instantly become more disciplined and are able to just hop up and start going about it. But that's just not how your brain works. It cannot just instantly change it up. It can be influenced and therefore make it easier to do, but if it doesn't have that baseline of what it looks like to be like that or do that thing, then it won't know how to properly become accustomed to this new lifestyle change that you're aiming to have. Now, that goes without saying, there are some exceptions. There are some times where you can make one change to your life that ends up lasting, and you don't need to subtly introduce it to your daily habits. But what I'm talking about today is the big things that are going to really make an impact on your life. You see, it's hard to do it in a large scale, so the most important thing is that you're at least being consistent with it. You see, the power of consistency means that your brain isn't solely focused on the small scope of just what you're getting done in the day. It means that it's focusing about being consistent, and in the long term, by the end of the year, you've actually built up these skills. In a similar way to, you can't just read through a book for the whole day and then learn everything that's in it. It's going to take consistent study blocks to be able to learn it bit by bit, so that by the end and by the time that you've consistently read up on it and studied it, then you'll be able to actually learn it. And not to mention, there's also the bonus of it knocks down that barrier of always thinking that you need to have a bunch of things done, and just having those little things to be done, but just every day or however many times you have to do it, means that you're able to actually do it when the time comes to it and not stress and overthink how you're going to do it. Much like it's easier to read a book 10 pages a day rather than 70 in just one day of the week, because what's most likely going to happen is that you're going to be tired one day and you're going to push it back to the next, and you're going to think, oh, I'll just do it the next day because I was able to skip, and it just gets pushed back and you procrastinate, and that's a whole mess that we don't want to get into. Those small consistent habits breaks down that barrier and makes it easier to actually do it when the time comes. But what I really want to get into today is how just having that first strike of progress in those small and consistent habits mean that it's easier to make it slightly bigger the next time because you've made a new baseline. It can be very difficult to go from a really unhealthy diet to a really good one the next day. It's much easier to start substituting foods in by the day or most likely by the week. But the thing is, even if you don't stay consistent and you end up stopping at the first week, you've still got some healthy foods in that example, and you still have that baseline, so that the next time you're struck with, okay, now I really need to start being more consistent, you've got a launch pad that means that you've already made some progress and that's going to stay with you. And the fact is that that effect applies to all your habits. If you start doing something and then stop doing it, if you start back up again soon enough, you're going to realize that you've already got sort of a baseline. If you're already used to studying a lot or having those periods of deep work, then switching up and improving that habit of including sometimes to study books and sometimes to study online, that means that it's a lot easier and more natural for your brain to be able to pick up on those habits because you've got that baseline. And even if that baseline lasts for the whole year before you pick it back up again and start improving yourself more, it's still there. It stays with you and makes it a lot easier to break down those barriers of entry to thinking whether or not you can actually do it, and you're able to make more progress. So that's all for today. However, if you're still interested in learning anything about productivity tips and tricks, I've now started one-on-one coaching, which you can book a call for using the first link in the description below. But until then, I'll see you later.